those people wouldn't have died. Moses, I mean David, how can people die looking for what to eat in their own country?
Quite unfortunate, really.
Can you just imagine?
Because this is becoming one too many.
And natural resources that God gave them, and they want to make use of it to live, and yet the government and their police went to kill them with all manner of excuses.
All right, then, Barrister, let's take this conversation to Kenya, where Honorable Mercy Ngota has joined this conversation. Honorable, first off, on the path of government, what do you think can be done right with the miners in Mozambique? Clearly, because as it stands, police operatives have no, I don't want to use the word training enough to manage these kind of protests by individuals across Africa. We're seeing this happen over time, and the rules of engagement are not being adhered to. What do you think can be done moving forward in a country like Mozambique?
Thank you so much, David. It's an honor and it's a pleasure to be with you here. And it really is sad to see how much our democracy in Africa is not maturing any fast. Our democracy has refused to grow. So this kind of incidents, unfortunate incidents, will keep on repeating itself as long as we do not know our rights, as long as the constitution that we have, different nations have different constitutions. But it's very unfortunate that some of our constitutions do not protect its citizens, do not protect the business environment, does not protect the people and the things that they do. So it's quite unfortunate that one of the things that is really tying us down is our constitution and the respect to the rule of law and our democracy. Because if people will be dying, if people will be going out to protest over their basic rights, over things that are supposed to be simple, laws that are supposed to be written down, and the moment they are written down, they give it a safe environment for people to work. If things are simple like that, we in Africa and in our governments, they are not able to fulfill, then it becomes a problem. So the main problem that we have, David, that I can tell you today for sure, is for the fact that it has become extremely hard for us to implement the laws that we have set and for us to respect our rule of law. That has been the problem. And this is both ends. You find both on the side of the government and both on the side of the citizens. Everybody wants to fight for their right, for their space. And this is making us to be in an, how can I call it? It's like a shambolic environment because everybody is fighting for their own space. So it's very unfortunately what happened in Mozambique, and we are praying for the people.
All right, then. Well, I'm still going to stay with you. Interestingly, a lot of persons have said that this particular situation in Mozambique is long coming because there is that trust deficit, particularly on the path of the government and the people, because the government is ruling out just 7 persons as dead, while the civil organization is saying over 38 were killed in that particular situation. But then again, concerns are being raised about transparency on how these documents come out to the public. What do you make of documentation, particularly knowing for a fact that the miners truly want to be documented with the government, but the way at which it's going, because according to reports, some oppositions are saying that this is the government trying to throw out the miners who are doing their legal job.
So David, you see, what you're talking about is something that it's a crisis in Africa. And not only in Africa, any other country that is privileged enough to have minerals. This is a conversation that we are going to have for a very long time, as long as our leaders are not able to capitalize on the natural resources that God has given unto us to create wealth for its citizens. So the problem that you are seeing in Mozambique, it is because of that interest. It's because of the goodwill from the government. People want things to be done the right way. They are willing to even give out all the documentations. But yet again, do you know what it entails for people to give out these documentations? You find the the local government, from the main government, you find the process, the bureaucracy is just too much. So people are forced to go out and try to make a living. They will do everything possible to go and take whatever they can take and be able to sell to just make an ends meet. But this is the main issue. The bureaucracy in getting the documents. It's extremely expensive. The documentations are there, but it's extremely expensive for people to get all of the right documents. For example, they can even ask for documents that are not even enshrined in the Constitution, something that is not enshrined in the business sector or in the business panel of the Penal Code of the Constitution. You find it's a document that has not even been written down. They go from one local place to another and they still are not able to get it. So we must ask ourselves, where exactly is this problem coming from? The bureaucracy of getting the right documentations, and number two, the laxity from the part of the government. Why should they allow people to mine in dangerous zones, knowing very well that there is risk of casualties? It's extremely sad, David. It's sad.
All right, then. Let me bring back this conversation to the studio here with Barrister. Barrister, Honorable Mercedes speak about the bureaucracy found in documentation in some of these countries. Let's use Nigeria as a case study. Nigerians have consistently been talking about the e-passport, plus some other documentation that have really been very, very vital for Nigerians to get. And of course, still talking about elections now. INEC has said that they've started the registration again. What's your position with the fact that bureaucracy hinders a lot of this registration being done right? And why do you think the government is not looking at it directly to cover it clearly?
Look, government is exploitative against the people. Most governments in Africa, they are very exploitative against their own people because they believe they are mostly illiterate. That's why they create all this bottleneck and all that, knowing fully well that the downtrodden, the illiterate, the uninformed will not cross that hurdle, and so they want to exploit them. In fact, whenever they come together, some civil society group organize them to protest and they shoot them. Like in Mozambique, this is what is going on. Exploitation. Government want to take maximum advantage of their people, especially in Africa. That is why they are poor. David, that is why they are poor. Meanwhile, these mineral resources, the proceeds are going into the pocket of these African leaders. They use it to live large to the detriment of their people. Why do you think Africa is poor? Because their leader made them poor. One man may be richer than the whole country. Ask yourself, where did the money come from? From the resources of the same country that should have gone round the people. One man decided to take it. And so when the people say, look, let us make this thing go round, they say, no, you are not worthy to have a share. Why should you even talk? They will shoot you. That is just the modus operandi of most evil leaders in Africa. They don't want their people to have a breathing space. And if we are not careful, this thing will cause revolution in Africa. It's Africa that have not had revolution. Europe have had their own. America have had their own. I hope you know. It is only Africa. And they are calling for it. It will come. David, it will come, because this evil will not continue forever.
Oh, well, Barrister, that again is another conversation that we will be looking at pretty soon. But let me take this conversation back to Honorable Mercy. Well, I want to come to you because in your country, and I'm talking about Kenya, Riley Odinga's chief agent, Saibato Kanchori, has made scouting attacks on some of the late leader's closest ally, claiming that if, of course, Riley Odinga were alive today, he would immediately fire them. Do you think at this point the lawyer alleged that the ODM leaders, including the Suna East member, I'm talking about Member of Parliament Junet Mohammed, Energy Cabinet member Secretary of PEO Wandai, and of course John Mbadi, all prioritize personal gains over the nation? I want to use that word, as a political figure that you are as well in your country, do you think that this statement by the chief ally of Riley Odinga is coming at a time that Kenyans truly need to know the reality of where the party that the late Riley Odinga left behind is heading to?
What is in the public domain is before the man died, he was very particular that he wanted the people of ODM for many years. He wanted them to be part of the government. So this is the truth, and nothing can be far from that truth, but that was his own wish. But again, we know that the previous government, President Uhuru Kenyatta, he campaigned fully for Raila Odinga. He campaigned for his presidency. But eventually Raila Odinga was not able to win. There is a question there. And you know, in a mature democracy like Kenya, the truth is that it is extremely, or let me say in some democracies in Africa, it's extremely hard or rare to see a candidate backed by the president fail at the last point. So whatever the chief agent is talking about, Kunchari, whatever he's talking about, he's trying to defend himself. And I can tell that I have a feeling that what he's saying is the truth. Because if Raila Odinga had all the machineries, he had the agents, he had everybody on his side, he has the government on his side, and every other thing was on his side, and he still failed. Who failed him? They are all there who ensured that the man failed. But the will of the people prevailed. That is what I can say. But it's very rare to see a situation whereby a leader who has been backed by the president eventually comes to fail. Meaning that there are people who paid the agent's fee, or they were not able to really observe and protect the votes well, and that is why you see this man failed. All right, but what I know, what I know, David, what I know is this. If people go out to vote, it's extremely hard to steal votes in Kenya. There is a lady who vied in Kenya. Her name is Lynette Toto. She's just a young lady. She just vied for women rep of one county, Nandi something. Yes, she did not have anything. She went door to door. But at the end of the day, she beat some of the wealthiest women who were vying for the same seat. So this tells you that no matter the conversation that is going around, whoever that won the seat, fair and square.
Well,
we are supposed to face.
I'm still going to stay with you. Concerns are being raised about the fact that, yes, should Riley Odinga be alive, according to the chief agent, he would have fired these people. But would firing the named leaders fix anything without party financing, transparency, and of course, digital primaries like what we see presently in Kenya? Or does the ODM risk swapping faces, like, of course, while keeping the same patronage machine that has helped these people get into power?
What I can say, David, is this. The man left his people, he died, and by the time he was dying, he had put in machineries, he had put in his own people in the government, in the cabinet, he had put in Badi there, he had put in Opio Wandai there, he had put all of them. He is the one who went into an agreement with the government, and then the government decided to place his own people. And now it seems that as the party proceeded, and as the more we were nearing the general elections, some of them felt that no, how comes it is only a few people who are benefiting from this broad-based agreement of Raila Odinga and President Ruto? So there are some who began to feel that no, it seems they are not being factored in. Now this is where this is where now the conversation takes a different direction. Now some of this group, they began to claim that the former president, they began to go back to the former president because they need his support. You know, politics is more about interest.
Right.
So the people who are not able to fit into the government, to fit into the plan, now they also want a piece of the share. If they're not going to be given a piece of the cake, then they are going to form the next government. So this is all about interest.
All right, then.
It's personal interest, sir.
All right, then. Let's take this conversation back to the studio here. Barrister, interestingly, you are very aware of the situation. In fact, before the late Riley Odinga died, there were conversations about the fact that the present president, I'm talking about Mr. Ruto, William Ruto, carefully is going to align with Riley Odinga for his next election. That, of course, was not substantiated enough. But from your position, Barrister, the president of Riley Odinga, knowing that the legendary Uhuru Kenyatta also gave this man that level of support, do you think having these kind of men in the ODM is an indication of the fact that politicians will always be politicians in the end because they would go their way and not the way of the people, like, of course, opposition is doing right now?
African democracy thrives on corruption. If you are not corrupt, you don't make any headway. The reason why Riley Odinga could not make it is because that man was not corrupt, at least to the extent of what we are seeing today. The last assessment of corruption index worldwide, Ruto came first. Is that not true?
Right.
Good. What does that tell you? That the man is sitting on corruption, and so corrupt people will rally around him. You saw how the youth of Kenya rally ran to stop him and his corrupt cabinet. And so what is happening in Kenya is like a fairy dream. Seriously, it was a fairy dream because Riley Odinga couldn't make it to reposition Kenya. He couldn't because of age and all that. And now the guys he left behind could not continue his dream. That's what happened with your disciples. The moment you are not there, they will go their way and start looking for crumbs from the master's table. Just ask yourself, how come that Ruto is the most corrupt person in the whole world from the assessment of this corruption index? It will not tell you what is going on at home. So I'm not surprised. When Odinga is no longer there, who will put his boys in line? Who will put them in check? Nobody. Nobody. And so they too want to have a piece of the cake. And that means corruption galore.
Oh, well, definitely we'll keep our eyes on this conversation as it progresses in Kenya. But Barrister, let's move from there to Uganda, where Amnesty International says Uganda's opposition is being subject to a brutal campaign of repression ahead of the country's January 15th general election. Now, it's no more news that the head of military operations in Uganda is the son of the sitting president. I'm talking about President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Just yesterday, one of the analysts from Uganda did say that as it stands, internet has been shut down in the country. Barrister, looking at the fact that in a couple of days, Ugandans will be going to the polls, what is expected of the election come January the 15th?
That is, you see, I have been warning these African leaders. They think I'm joking. With the interest of Donald Trump in Africa now, they should be very careful. It will not take the man anything to kidnap all of them since they don't want to hear. How can you be doing an election because you're on seat, you're in power? You now want to suppress opposition. Donald Trump, with all the power he has in America, can he do that, David? Be sincere to yourself. Can a Donald Trump do that to American opposition? He dare not. The institution in America will catch him. They will deal with him. But look at Africa, small Africa, with local champions.
So in other words, Barrister, are you saying that the institutions are the problem, not the people?
Who created the institution? Is it not a human being? If this man were to say, look, I don't want this nonsense, will he not stand? Hold on, will it not stand? Eh? A president of this country once said that the blood of one Nigeria is not what is the election, and he kept to it. So why can't you have leaders who are very futuristic, who have vision? David, the vision for Africa, it is not on their mind. When they get in there, they want to play God. The other woman has even copied it from Tanzania. In her own case, she went a bit further. You know, she took it a notch, higher. Rounded up all the opposition and put them in detention until after the election. David, is that democracy? Tomorrow now, you come and tell me how the Western world colonized you. How they did. Was it the fault of America and Europe that you are doing all these things? Is that the democracy you copy from them? It's like African leaders, they went into a meeting, into a coalition, and said, look, this is how we are going to do this thing. Since in the 60s, all of them, if you check what happened in the DR Congo now, that was there. When Mobutu Sese Seko was there, he said, before me, there is no Zaire, and after me, there will be no Zaire. Is that not what happened? This man plundered his country. At the end of the day, what happened? He died miserably. Do you know what even surprises me? When they want to die, they die in such a way that, in fact, you don't even want to drop a tear or one for them because of what they have done in their country. Right, this same Uganda now, look at what Idi Amin did there. Did he not die in exile? This particular man, this Yoweri Museveni, he should be very careful. Oh, well, Barrister, you should look at the history of Uganda. You should be very, very, very careful. I'm still going to come back to you, Barrister. Let's take this conversation to Kenya. Honorable Messi, interestingly, this conversation about the fact that opposition have been totally suppressed in Uganda is a concern to the point that Amnesty International is reading out a statement. But concerns have been raised about the fact that terms and age limits have been scrapped from the constitution in Uganda, and of course rivals jailed or sidelined, and of course state security forces are a constant presence at opposition rally. What is your take about the fact that not just internet shutdown is what's been experienced in Uganda, but the fact that oppositions are being suppressed? In fact, a record of 550 persons from oppositions are either arrested or killed, according to a report that came out just last week from Uganda.
The main problem of Uganda is lack of patriotism. I've been in Uganda. Lack of patriotism, the sense of patriotism in a way that judges, parliamentarians, they're not willing to come out and fight for their rights. This has been the main problem in Uganda. How can a man be in power for more than 40 years? I've heard Barrister talking about history. What other history does Uganda know apart from the history that has been written down by Yoweri Museveni? It's all about the people refusing a revolution. What Uganda needs now is revolution. How can a man sit down and decide to shut down the whole internet? I was there recently. Facebook is not working. You're not able to access. You're not able to access international communication. It's hard. Sometimes they are monitoring you. It's extremely hard. Why? Because people have refused to fight for their rights. There is no democracy that is just found like that. Democracy is found when people go out and refuse repression. They go and they fight for their right. Lack of patriotism is the main problem with Uganda. Everyone is afraid to face the president. They think if they face the president, they will die. But if a people speak in one language, there is a time that we had the End SARS movement. In as much as it was not as successful as we wanted, but the world got to hear about the genesis of Nigeria. So the same thing we are talking about here today, that Uganda has refused to become some of the people have refused to become patriotic, to fight for their rights, go to the State House and demand for their rights. It doesn't matter what the government will do. We can decide to fight for our rights, and eventually we will win. The oppressor will not always win. Eventually the victory is in the people.
All right, then. Well, because of our time, really, let me just come back to the studio. Barrister, in less than 30 seconds, the elections in Uganda is a few days away. And as it stands, repression and oppression of opposition is clearly seen, because opposition figure, I'm talking about Bobby Wine, is saying that almost half of his supporters are either in detention or are being killed by military forces, as led by the son of the Ugandan president. What is expected of election in January the 15th in Uganda?
In the first place, there's no election in Uganda. What we have in Uganda is selection. Like every other African states where dictators are in charge. There is no election. Make no mistake about it. With what is happening now, there is no election. And so, the result is already out there, David. We are just waiting for the announcement.
All right, then.
Like it happened in Cameroon.
All right, then. Well, we definitely will be keeping our eyes on that. And, of course, we're hoping that our Ugandan analysts also will be giving us insight on what is happening in that country as the days go by. I want to say a big thank you.